they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence. Spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence.
Anxious Earth is rising. Anxious Earth is rising. I'm so happy.
We spend our life searching for the sense of belonging. Some people die before they fulfill their desires. Such a waste of existence.
Music stop? There's no sound there. Oh, hey! Hey, Double Triple Channel here. This is Ron in rural New Hampshire. Welcome to the stream. If you're watching this on a video somewhere, this is a live stream on Twitch. It's just a recording of it. And it's not an edited video, so it's going to be scuffed, it's going to be mistakes. Going to be some swearing, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I live in rural New Hampshire, surrounded by animals, forests. I stream about that a lot. I like to stream about science, do film reviews sometimes. Today we're going to talk about a new monkey species, found out about it, and some more AI news, and maybe, I don't know. I like talking about AI, so we'll talk about AI a little bit, I guess. Let's see here. Let me check something here. I can do a technical thing. I'll be right back. Hang on just a second. All right, I think we got it. All right, so this is going to be live stream. Going to talk about monkeys, going to talk about AI, going to talk about, what else did I have in here? Animal consciousness, maybe. go through whatever, look through my browser history. Do that a lot. So it's not a super planned out stream this time, but that's okay. We'll go with it. It's just that there's so much stuff going on, you know. I normally don't stream very often, but there's just been so much stuff going on that I want to stream about it. So, so that's what we're gonna do. Let's see. Here's my channel promo, in case you don't know who I am. I'll play that here.
Double Tribble is in rural New Hampshire. He has social dyslexia, and he streams science and technology, film reviews, IRL with the animals, civics, and vegan things. Animals, civics, and vegan things. What's vegan? Animals, civics,
Double Tribble dwells in the rugged hills of rural New Hampshire. He bears the bird hills of rural New Hampshire, and yet he bears the bird science, social technology, film critique, life among the beasts, civics, and the many matters of the vegan creed.
Double Tribble is in rural New Hampshire. He has social dyslexia, and he streams science and technology, film reviews, IRL with the animals, civics, and vegan things. What's vegan?
Double Tribble is in rural New Hampshire. He has social dyslexia, and he streams science and technology, film reviews, IRL with the animals, civics, and vegan things. What's vegan?
Okay, that's my channel promo. All right, so I don't know. Hopefully you heard that. It looked like the sound was going out there. I don't know if it was or not. All right, now the interesting thing here is that it's showing my audio going out here, but it's not showing that I'm going out live. I'm sorry, I'm having my last stream was just a total mess. I'm sorry, I'm having technical stuff, so I'm not sure if it's working or not. I'm going to take one more break here. Yeah, if you're watching this on a VOD, just fast forward this part. Fast forward to whatever part you want, because it's a live thing, you know. Hang on just a second here. I just realized that my "Be Right Back" sign is wearing out there. You can't even see it. That's supposed to say "Be Right Back." If you just joined me, you wouldn't know that I was going to be right back. All right, let me try something here. I want to make sure everything's in sync, so this will just take a second. All right, we're in sync. Ready to rock and roll here. Close the door here. Let me fix this sign here. My "Be Right Back" sign. I have a "Be Right Back" video or something that I can play, but I forget how to start it. So, I'm gonna see, this is my "Be Right Back" sign. So I'm gonna write on it here. You see that? That looks better, doesn't it? See how that works? All right. Can you hear the squeaky? A little Sharpie ASMR there. Be right back. All right. Now that I've got that wet ink on there, I can lean up against it and it'll say on the back of my shirt, it'll say that I'll be right back too. There we go. All right. Now when I leave, there'll be a little sign there that says I'll be right back. And even if I trip and fall and knock myself out, it'll say be right back. Even though I won't be if that happens. All right, let's see. All right. Well, let's talk about monkeys here. All right, so we got monkeys. I saw, you know how you get your feed, right? Your news feed, and it said, oh, they discovered a new monkey, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, well, wait a second, I just heard about that. That they discovered a new monkey like over a decade ago. He said, did they find another one? What's going on? And it's complicated. So here's a little bit that kind of halfway explains it here. Let's see.
Hey, we're the monkeys!
Did that explain it? No, I was wrong video. Sorry. All right, we'll do the real one here. All right. So but it was in the news, right? And it turns out that what it is that it's a species that they had found like over almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago. Somebody said, hey, that looks like a new species, and they got a blurry picture of it or whatever, and so they said, oh, this might be a new species, blah, blah, blah. And so they did an investigation, and over the years and years and years, they did this investigation where they tried to, figure out if this was a new monkey or what's going on, And so let me bring up, because I do have some stuff. Do I have these bookmarked? Let's see if I have them bookmarked. That would be easier. No, I don't have them bookmarked. I have them in my history though. So let me go through my history here. All right. Let's see. New monkey. Here's new monkey species. Okay, this is CNN's coverage of that. We don't want that. We want the real thing. We want to go to the actual paper that talked about the new monkey. And I do have that in here somewhere. New monkey species. Here it is. Oh, here's a Wikipedia article talking about it. That's good enough, right? Oh, this is the wrong one. So there was another one, and I don't know if what I had heard about a decade ago was about this other new monkey that they had found, or what exactly it is. So it's kind of confusing here as to what was going on. This monkey here, Lasula. This is not the monkey that's in the news right now, but it's one that they discovered. Let's see, discovered in 2007, confirmed in 2012. All right. So that's that one. You got there's some cute pictures of this too. If you do a if I do a Google image search of this thing, copy. Let's go over here. We'll do a new Google. All right, hang on just a second here. We'll get this figured out. Google. So here we go. So these pictures. Some of them look like they may have been modified here. I don't know. Isn't that a cute little picture here of this guy? New monkey species. And they're all in the Congo for some reason. I don't know. I guess it's just there's a lot of you know, flora, you know, for them to have cover, I guess. I don't know. But they have these. So there's that guy. There's the guy right there. New monkey species. But that's not the one that's in the news. The one in the news is a different guy. So let me see if I can find that. All right. I'll look through my history again. History. Here we go. All right. I'm going through my history here. There it is. No. Let's see. Okay, it's way back here. And something else I found out when I was doing all this, and we'll get to that a little bit, is that monkey covers apes now. It used to be that, you know, apes were not considered monkeys, but as they discovered more about, you know, DNA, and they reclassified, they did the taxonomy different and all that, they figured out that no, yeah, apes are monkeys. They're all part of the same thing. Let's see. That's BBC. We don't want that. Okay, here it is. I think this is it. Yeah, there we go. This is it. Hang on just a second. Flip this over. So this is the one that's in the news right now. And the species name is Colobus or Colobus. Congoensis. They found it in the Congo. I don't know what anus is. Yeah, Colobus is like is it a family name? Let's see. Colobus is the genus, and the species is Colobus congoensis. I'm not a biology guy or any of that, so I don't understand this stuff that much, but I thought it was kind of interesting, so I researched it, and so we can learn together what this is about. So it's they found it way back in 2008, and then they ended up they did all this research trying to find it. They interviewed people in like, you know, 50 something different villages to try to find out about it, and they finally got a real picture of it. So here's a real picture of it, right? And it's kind of interesting because the mouth has weird colors. It's got orangish, pinkish kind of mouth. Let's see, this is a bigger picture, yeah. And so it's got a very unique appearance, you know. But of course they don't just do species by appearance, right? They don't do that anymore. Otherwise, Chihuahua and Great Dane would be two different species, right? So they don't do that. But they found this guy, and they know quite a bit about him, you know, because they kind of, you know, they've seen him a few times, and what it is they finally just wrote up a paper on it. Maybe I've got a picture. Maybe I've got a. Did I download that? I may have downloaded the paper on it. Oops. Let's see if I can find that. Downloads. No, I guess I didn't. I thought I downloaded the paper. Let's see. They should have a link to the paper here somewhere. Washington Post. Let's see. Science. Maybe that's it. That might be it. Let's see if that's it. No, it's not it. New monkey species discovered. No. All right, so I want to find a paper on it. I thought I had that here. Very handy, clever, but I didn't. let me see if I can find that paper here. No. Damn. All right. Hang on just a second. I can find this thing. I know I can do it. See, I had a technical problem. With my computer in the last stream because I had too much shit open up when I was doing my stream. So I decided, oh, I'll close everything and I'll just open it up as needed and I'll keep it in my history here and I'll be able to find it, but I can't. Unfortunately, I can't find it. Here it is. Maybe this is it. This is it, I think. Let's see here. Okay, this is the real paper. Okay, we got it here. So we can look at this here and actually get the real deal. You know, because you never know when you're looking at, you know, stuff that's reported by mainstream media. They always get it wrong. So we'll just go to the original paper here. I don't know how you pronounce this. Likweli? Likweli? I don't know. Likweli? I don't know. And this is a place in the Congo, Lomami National Park, which is apparently the watershed area of the Lomami River. Anyway, it's a basin area. So this is the actual thing. So they discovered this thing back, you know, in 2008, which they say in here somewhere. Let's see here. Here's methods, local knowledge. Let's see what we got here. Species examined, morphology. Okay, that's getting into it. But they actually say in the paper here, they say that they first saw it in 2008. So I know that's the real deal. But then after they you know, they went a little while and then I think they had another observation of it and they said, okay, let's put some resources behind this, and they went in and, you know, interviewed a bunch of people and really combed the area and set up cameras and blah 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 blah. You know, did the whole thing, and they recovered one from a hunter. Unfortunately, it's just unbelievable that they still hunt primates in that area, but they do. And they recovered one from a hunter. You know, one that a hunter had killed. They confiscated it, and I think they used that as their what do they call it? The species, you know, the model species or whatever. The model specimen. I forget what they call it. But anyway, they did the whole thing. So they, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff they got to go through in order to declare that there's new species, and they did it, and then they put it all in this paper here. So they talk about the distribution, where it's at, where they've seen it, you know, so far, and all this kind of stuff. They note that there have only been, in the last 75 years, there have only been 5 or 6. See, including at least 4 hominoids and 6. I don't know what that word is. I can't pronounce that word. So it's kind of rare. It's kind of rare to find a new primate species. And I even remember back when they were, like, I think it was like 10 years ago or 15 years ago or something, when they announced the new monkey, a new primate. I said, wow, how can they be still discovering new primates? You know, it's amazing that they can do that. They're doing that still, but they were. So anyway, they got a paper on this guy, and I think they have some sounds that they make. They've recorded some sounds that they make, and oh, here it is, right here. So I see operations are guided by the Congolese law. Oh no, wait, that's not it. That's a law. Okay, we got a thunderstorm starting here, so hopefully I don't lose power. I don't know if you can hear that or not. The rain's coming down pretty good. Did you hear that? That's thunder. All right, so they did the whole thing. It's a real deal, man. They got it. And I have a motion picture of the new monkey that they discovered here somewhere too. Let's see if I can bring that up. Here's the paper. While I look for they had a video of it. So let's see here. There it is. Okay. All right. So here's the video of the thing. And what they've done, the original video was all shaky and everything, so they enhanced it. They enhanced it, and made it so it was so it didn't shake so much and all that kind of stuff. Let's see, VLC. That's what I'm trying to do here, right? Let's see if I can get this connected here. All right. Okay, here we go. So I'll play this video for you, and you can see they've stabilized the video so you can see it. Here we go. There's the new monkey species. Very elusive. All right, that's for those of you who don't recognize that video. That's a Bigfoot video. They did a big. That was a hoax that was done back in the 70s, I think it was, where they did Bigfoot. So I wanted to play that. I thought that was kind of funny. CNN has some video of it. I don't know if it's real. I don't know where they got it or whatever. And there's a YouTube video out there with some stuff on it. Or no, it wasn't CNN. It was some other news organization has a video of it, but I don't know if it's real or not. It's just something I saw on YouTube. So I'm sure they must have video of it right by now. They got still pictures. They must have got video too. That was a still picture that we showed there from Wikipedia. It was pretty good. Let's see here. Yeah, that's a pretty good picture, right? They're not gonna. They must have video too, right? Real video, so. Let's see here. See if there's anything else interesting about this guy. Oh, it's smaller than most of them in the genus. It says it differs from the closely related black Colobus, whose face is entirely black, by its pale facial patch. Okay. So it looks different. But there was a, let's see if I'm going to try to find this here real quick. Over a monkey, baboon. Right, let me just go to monkey here. Shit. There you go. All right, monkey. There's in this the taxonomy here of monkeys. It turns out that hominins like us, right? Apes, the great apes, are actually not a separate thing. We like hominids or pan. The pan branch that includes the chimpanzees and the bonobos. Branched off from the branch that we were on, it was like 5 to 11 million years ago or something like that. But there have been other branches off of our branch since then. So they're technically humans and all apes are considered monkeys now. It's kind of there's some controversy around it because it's been around. We've been having it separate. We've been having apes separate from monkeys for so long, and everybody's been correcting everybody for a long time, saying no, apes aren't monkeys. Monkeys are monkeys. Apes are apes. All this time, and then they they get the DNA and more evidence and more archaeological or paleontological evidence and all this kind of stuff, and they figure out apes are actually part of the whole monkey tree of species and stuff. So it's, technically apes are monkeys. So it's okay if you see a chimpanzee or person or any ape, great ape, a gorilla, you can say they're all monkeys. So they, technically, but there's still people out there who will disagree. Who will say no, it's not right. Apes aren't monkeys. Because really the difference is apes don't have tails. So what, right? If tomorrow you can't go by the phenotype. You have to look at the DNA. You have to look at all the evolutionary history and all that. So if tomorrow if there was a mutation and you had a human that grew a tail, and it was passed along, and we ended up with humans that had tails, we wouldn't say it was a different species of human, right? Just for that one mutation. If that was the only change, right? So that's kind of a weird way to explain it, but all right. But then there was this other monkey, right? This other monkey came by. And he was discovered, I guess, back in 2000, around the same time, right? 2007, and then they publicized it and made it official in 2012. So I'm not sure which one I had heard about before, but it's just amazing that they discovered two, just this century. We've discovered at least two new monkeys. I think there was another one too that I run across, which is it's amazing. This guy makes some interesting noises. I can play that. Maybe will that work? You hear that? All right, so that's the monkey. That's the other monkey that he discovered. And this one's called Lasula. Lasula. It's a different. Let's see, it's the same. It's primate. I think it's the same family, but it's a different genus. So it's different doohickey or different type of monkey, but they're all monkeys. So. All right. So that's the monkey announcement. So I thought that was kind of cool. So when you hear about we discovered a new monkey, it's not like they just found it last Tuesday or something, Yeah, they discovered it almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago was the first sighting of the thing, and it's just. The news is that they published the paper that made it official, and the Academy said, "Yep, it's a new species," and so they did it. That's the news. All right, let me see if I got anything else here. Okay, AI. That's what I like to talk about. AI. Got a lot of different things going on with AI. I did some experiments with AI and asked it some questions that I thought were kind of interesting and to try to suss out some stuff. Last stream, I talked about how they came out two things, right? OpenAI came out with a new model that has full duplex communication with the LLM and voice. So when you put that together, and temporal awareness, so you put all those things together, you end up with a model that can converse very, very much like a human can, and it can listen while it's talking, and you can interrupt it, and it can interrupt you, and you know, it's a more natural sound, you know, way to communicate with it and all that kind of stuff. I don't like to use voice to communicate with it. I type in my stuff, and I don't even play back with voice. I just read what the answer that it gives, because they tend to be verbose. At least the one that I use tends to be verbose, so that'd be pretty annoying to have to listen to a whole audio, you know, of, you know, 500, 1,000 word answer or whatever. So that's not, yeah, I don't do that. But if you're using it just for quick stuff, or I showed a video last week, or my last stream, of them doing real-time translation, so that's pretty cool to be able to do that. So anyway, that was the announcement. And the other thing was this discovery that Anthropic researchers did, where they used a special mathematical technique to probe the neural net, which I talked about in detail last time. They have this mathematical technique, what is it called? Jacobian matrix something. I forget what it's called. But they call it a J-lens to look at. Get it? J-lens to look at the network, the neural net. And this mathematical model is especially designed for looking at vector matrices, which is what a neural net is. It's, you know, each node is a vector, so it has a direction. It points to some other. It's not a spatial direction, but it's a direction in terms of the next probe or the next node that it's going to be pointing at. Right, that's a direction, and then there's a magnitude, because it has a value how strongly it wants to do that. And you know, you got a billion of those put together, and you get something that knows how to think. You know, so that's what we talked about last time. But there was some more stuff that I got into. There's some news, some stuff about Xi Jinping, the president of China, gave a speech about AI. So that, you know, people think he's important, so they covered it. The news people covered it, and it was basically this new organization that China has formed, and they took a bunch of their lackeys, China and Russia together, formed this new AI organization. Let's see if I can find that here in my history. Here it is. Okay, world. Okay. So I'm just gonna go to the wiki article on it, Wikipedia article, because the website is in Chinese, and my browser can translate that, but it takes a lot of CPU to do that, so I don't want to do that. But there's a website you can go to here. Here's the link. I'll copy the link and put it into in the chat here. Just paste it right here. There you go. That's the link to the thing. But they apparently they had their first meeting in 2018. I don't know how that happened, but it was basically just the Chinese government, you know, just at that time, 2018, they could see that there was progress being made and all that, and that there was going to be some breakthroughs. So everybody started getting involved in that a little bit. But they just had a meeting here, 2026. The event was attended by Chinese leader Xi Jinping, which was a big deal, right? So him showing up at this thing, at this meeting, was a big deal, right? Because he's the head of a big country, right? And and so they signed an agreement. 29 countries signed an agreement on the creation of this new international organization they're calling the World Artificial Intelligence Cooperation Organization. But if you look at the map there of who's a member of this thing, right? It's yeah, it's not. Western world is not really part of it too much. Australia is not part of it. It's based, it's China, Russia, and their satellite countries, but also Brazil. But even India isn't a part of it yet, So Angola. What else we got here? South Africa on there? I don't think that's right. Is that right? Ethiopia, Tanzania. So, but Pakistan, Oman. Is that Oman? Yeah. So it's all the Stan countries there: Pakistan, Tajikistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan. They're all all those are in there, and a whole bunch of little countries. But they got Indonesia, So Vietnam, of course, Laos, Cambodia. It looks like. Here, wait, we can look at. Instead of me trying to figure it out from a map, we can just look here, right? There we go. So there are all the countries. So I'm guessing that Tajikistan is not a big player in AI. You know what I mean? So they just tried to get as many people, as many countries signed on to this thing as possible. Lesotho probably not big on AI. I don't know. Ethiopia, but they just tried to get a lot of people signed on to it. The U.S., right, and France and Europe, most of Europe didn't sign on to it, so it's kind of a competitive thing there. And of course, they try to put it out there saying, "Oh, it's an open thing. Everything's gonna be open. We're gonna let the littler countries in on it, and we're not gonna blah blah blah." But so that's China using soft power and AI. And everybody knows, right, that AI is, whoever controls AI is going to control the world. It's a big deal. Until AI decides they want to take over. Anyway, that's what's going to happen there. So that was a new thing. And he gave a speech, and they covered the speech. And, he just basically said, U.S. is bad. U.S. is trying to control everything. And we, blah, blah, blah. So that's what that was about. So it's kind of frustrating when I hear people dissing AI. I mean, AI is like it's the most, just without question, it's the most consequential invention ever invented by humans. Humanity. It's the most consequential thing we've ever invented. And then I hear people saying, "Oh, it's slop," and all this. It's like, what? Why are you doing that? Why would you say something like that? And I think it's because there's just a lot of people want to slow down AI progress in the U.S. for various reasons. Some people want to slow it down generally. Some people want to slow it down just in the U.S. so that they can catch up or whatever. So I think that's where all that slop stuff comes from, when people are talking about slop. Let's see what else I got in here. AI. Oh, we can look at some of my AI stuff. Before I go on to that, let me. This is gonna be a little scattered here a little bit, because I'm gonna talk about me scattering. So, me scattering. This is me scattering. M-I-E. We had a bunch of smoke here locally. All over the U.S., I guess. Mostly in north and northeast U.S. And up until, well, it's still in effect. our weather people have issued a bad pollution alert, too much smoke in the air type alert. And one way you can tell if there's a lot of particles in the atmosphere is by looking at the Mie scattering of those particles. And the little tiny smoke particles are so small that they're about the size of red light, which is whatever it is. Was it 650, 700 nanometers, something like that. So kind of small. And when a particle is about the same size as the wavelength of the light that is going through it, and you got a bunch of particles, then it does this effect called Mie scattering. And so the white light coming from the sun goes through these particles, and the wavelengths of light that are close to the size of the particles come through, and it looks orange. So that's why when you look at the sun in the morning, when there's a bunch, or in the afternoon when there's a bunch of this particles of stuff in the air, it's going to look orange, or red or whatever. And everything around you, when it looks like that, you go out, and even in the middle of the day when there's all this smoke out there, and you look around, everything's orange, and that's because of this Mie scattering. And I just thought it was interesting. Look at all this mathematics stuff that I don't understand that is involved in that whole thing. Atmospheric science. Mie scattering occurs when the diameters of atmospheric particles are similar to or larger than the wavelengths of the light. Dust, pollen, smoke, and microscopic water droplets that form clouds are common causes of Mie scattering. Mie scattering occurs mostly in the lower portions of the atmosphere. Okay. Where larger particles are more abundant. Okay. And dominate in the cloud. Okay. When I say larger particles, they mean like bigger than molecules. You know what I mean? It's not like molecules of nitrogen or something. It's actual solid particles of ash in the smoke. I also talked about N95s. You should wear an N95 when you go out, when they have those things, even if you're not around other people. Normally you wear a N95 mask when you're around other people, right? Hopefully you do that, right? You wear a seatbelt, right? So you should wear your mask, your N95 mask. It's one of these things. So when you go out, when they have these alerts, or just if you know that there's smoke in the air, or you see in the news or anything, or you go outside and it's orange, or red, sun looks red or whatever, then you should put on these masks, these N95 masks when you go out, and make sure it says N95 on it. We've gone through that. I explained this on most of my streams, what an N95 mask is. Basically, it's just got to say N95 on it. It's got to have straps that go all the way about behind your head, and when you wear it, you make sure that it makes a seal all the way around. And there's a lot more to it than that, but I won't get into that right now. So you should be wearing your N95 whenever you go outside. And I put these big HEPA filters, or HVAC filters, that they use for your central heating or whatever, central heating and cooling in your house or whatever. They got these big square filters. Here, I got one up here. I'll show you what it looks like. These filters here, you've seen these, right? These filters are they use that electrostatic filtering. So what I do is just slap that on the back of a box fan, and put the box fan in the window, and it blows the air in from outside, but it filters the air through that filter, so that I got a lot fewer little smoke particles inside here. And then in the morning or when I close everything up, right? When it's, you cool it down at night in the summertime, cool it down at night, and then in the morning when it starts warming up outside, you close up all the windows, and then when I do that, then I run the fan, the box fan, just inside on its own, and it'll circulate the inside air through it some more to really filter out those particles. So you should do that. Don't go outside and mess around and stuff like that. And if you're close to where the fire is, then you got to worry about the chemicals too, which are not filtered out by the N95 mask. So that's kind of important. And smog is the same way. Any kind of air pollution, right, is like that. You got the particulate part of it, which can be filtered out with the N95, but there's also the gas part of it, carbon monoxide, and a whole bunch of other different things that can be in the air. And if you're 100 miles away from the wildfire or whatever, that's probably not so much of a concern. Sometimes it can be if there's a certain type of weather event, where they call an inversion layer, that kind of pushes the air, all that air down and makes it more concentrated. Then that can come into play. That can be an issue. But mostly it's, unless you're near the source of the fire, mostly you just need to worry about the particulate. All right, so that's that. Let's see here. All right, we already talked about a global workspace and language models. I talked about that already. We did that. Animal consciousness. That was something that I was looking at here. I don't think we don't need to talk about that right now. Oh, here's something this is kind of off topic, but I ran across it. It's something that might be of use to people. Safe area. We're talking about being safe. There's going way back to the old television, when it was, broadcast over the air and all that. They had the TVs, some of the TV screens, when they used CRTs and all that, they might not, show, it might overscan a little bit or whatever, and some of the picture might not show up on your particular TV. And so they have these little buffer areas here they call the safe area. And they have different names for them or whatever. Title safe area, action safe area, visible area, whatever. And it's just the idea that when you're making your videos, you should leave space. And I actually ran into this trouble on my channel. Let's see if I got that here. All right, we might have a little bit of inception here. Hang on just a second here. Channel. Oh, shit. That's not what I wanted to do. Try harder here. All right, there we go. So this is my channel, and some of my videos didn't work out right. Okay, it's trying to play my thing here. Hang on just a second. There we go. Videos. All right. So I was doing this, and like this one here, I had a hell of a time with this particular video. This one says climate quiz. I had the AI. See this one with the woman here? I can't. The one with the woman right here. This one right here. That keeps changing down here. I had the AI make up this thumbnail for me. And it made up the thumbnail, but then when I uploaded the thumbnail here to Twitch and to YouTube, it was covering up this bottom part where the bottom part there. Let me just, I don't know if I can. I'm gonna zoom in on that. Let me see if I can find. I'll see if I can actually find the thumbnail here and load that up so you can see the whole thing, and I can explain what the problem is, what the deal is. Which thumbnail? There we go. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can switch over to this and show the picture really big so you can see what I'm talking about here. Hint window. Let's see here. Sorry, this is going to take a second here for me to get this. There we go. All right. You see that? All right, I'm going to have to adjust this a little bit more here. Shut my camera off. There we go. I think this is going to do it. No, didn't. Hang on, we'll get it. There we go. All right. There we go. Okay, so I did that. So I asked the AI to make up a thumbnail, right? And the problem is that when I uploaded this thumbnail, this is the thumbnail that the AI made, and it had headlines and all that kind of stuff. And I actually, when I told it to do the thumbnail, I told it to put these words here: "Stop driving your putt-putt car." I told it to say that, but otherwise I said, you know, just make up a thumbnail about this subject that has this headline in it somewhere, and maybe a subhead and all this kind of stuff. And it figured this all out. It put this little subtitle down here. It made that up all by its own. It made this little car, you know, did the whole thing. So I thought that was kind of cool. But the problem was when it did this, and then I upload this image to YouTube or Twitch or whatever, it cuts it off. It makes it, here, maybe I can actually simulate that here. It does something like this, you know, and it cut off the bottom, you know. So that's not good, right? So I had to redo the thing, and you know, try to put that safe area. Remember I was talking about the safe area, you know. I had to redo it. So what I ended up doing was going to making some revisions to it, I guess you'd say. So I did this one here. Let's see here. So I put a border around it like this, you know. It still looked kind of corny when I got it up there, but anyway, that's just something that if you're doing thumbnails, you got to be conscious of that. And I think what I'm going to do is when I do my prompts to my AI, I think I'm just going to say at the beginning, or you know, somewhere in the prompt, hey, make sure you have a safe area for the you know, the important images and text and all that when I actually give it the prompt. I think that's what I'm going to do. So that was something that came up, and I wanted to talk about that. All right, let me see if I can get switched over here to my camera, which is kind of goofy here. Hang it just a second here. Still having difficulties. All right, so when I was adjusting my other thing, It adjusted my camera. There we go. All right. So that was something. All right, so now I can get rid of that. I don't need to talk about that anymore. Me scattering. I talked about me scattering. So, very scattered stream here. Talking about me scattering. Oh my God. All right. So, all right, let's take a look at some of the stuff that I was doing with my my AI, so that I thought was kind of interesting. We can go through some of that. All right, so here's my AI. Oh, when we were talking about the monkeys and all that kind of stuff. Remember we were talking about the monkeys. Remember that?
Hey, we're the monkeys.
Remember that? Right? Yeah, we were talking about the monkeys. It made me think about, I was researching, why humans now can be called monkeys and apes can be called monkeys now, and I got into looking at hominins and the fossil record and evolution and all that kind of stuff. And so I thought about it a little bit, and I thought, oh, that's, I had thought about this before, about like the average lifespan, or the average the average life of a species, evolutionary lifetime of a species. And like humans have only been around, oh wait, something's going on here. We got something going on. I see something going on here. What's going on? Ibram, thanks for the raid. I appreciate it. All right, we've got another raid. All right, thank you, Ibram. I appreciate that. That's very nice.
Esrom_music just followed.
We got a follow. Esrom Music. All right, thank you for the follow, Esrom. That's very cool. Yeah, everybody give Erum and Esrom a follow. Esrom does some very cool music, video, production type stuff. Very cool. And Erum streams puzzles and words on stream. I suspect he just got done with words on stream. That's about the time that he does it. In the mornings he does quizzes, which are a lot of fun. I have fun with that. Sydney says happy Saturday. Thank you, Sydney. Happy Saturday to you too. Let's see who all we have here in chat. I'll do a pop out chat here so I can follow it now. Because I was doing my stream here. There wasn't anybody in chat, so I didn't have to worry about it. Now I have to worry about it. All right, let's see. Memlaws, happy welcome, Memlaws. Sydney, Peekaboo, hi Peekaboo. Esrom, thank you for the follow, Esrom. And Flash, hi Flash, welcome. Great, Peekaboo, hey Dub. Okay, great. All right, good to see you guys here. Yeah, I talked about a whole bunch of stuff. I talked about a new monkey species, and that was kind of fun. Did you see my? I don't know if you guys. I think you guys just missed my monkey. They found some video on this monkey. It's a new monkey species that they just found. So let me show you that here.
Hey, we're the monkeys.
Yeah, so that's the new monkey species they found. So yeah, I've been playing around with my setup here. I had some technical difficulties with the last thing, and I'm hoping to try to get over that, but of course I didn't. Still have technical difficulties. Here's the real video. Okay, here's the real video of the thing. If I can show you that. So it's very elusive monkey. They hardly it's very very amazing that they were even able to get this video, but I'll show you the video here of this monkey. All right, here we go. There it is. They've stabilized the image here so you can see it. There's the monkey. All right, so that's that was all right. Let's see here. Let me look at chat here and see what folks are saying. Okay, a lot of laughing when you were laughing. Flash, I was just thinking a new monkey song. Yeah. I love it. Okay, yeah. Esron says, most welcome surprise. I wasn't already following. Thank you. Eron rated so I could correct that. Oh, sure. Yeah, Esron, thank you. Eron, nice one. Eron laugh. Peekaboo. Peekaboo face melt. Yeah. Let's see. Here's I actually have here's let me see. I'll see if I can find that that I'll show you an act. This is the real thing. Okay, I'll show you the real monkey here if I got it. Well, there it is. All right, let's put this up here so you can act. This is the real. I promise. This is the real deal. All right, so this is the Wikipedia article on this thing, and this monkey. They basically just found him. They first spotted him back in 2008, and they've been researching. It took them almost 2 decades to finally make it official. And so just a few days ago, they put out the paper. This paper here, where they do all the hard work and do all the official stuff, cross their eyes and dot their T's or whatever whatever they got to do to make sure it's an official species. But the cool thing about this monkey is he's got this feature where he's his lips are red or pink or whatever, almost like a person's lips. So it's different, but you can't go by that. You can't go by what the species looks like. That's the thing. You can't. If you went by just how they look, then like Chihuahuas and Great Danes would be different species, but they're not. They're the same. So you got to go by the evolutionary history and the DNA and all that kind of stuff to figure out what's what. Let's see, that's Flash says that's no monkey. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing that I covered was the definition of a monkey. It turns out that for all these years I've been taught and told, and everybody's corrected me and all this stuff. All these years that an ape is different than a monkey. An ape is not a monkey. Yeah, everybody's always correcting you. But it turns out when they got more paleontology evidence and more DNA evidence and all this stuff, when they figured out all the chains and all that stuff, that the apes are really part of the same chain as the monkeys. It's not like the apes are a whole separate thing, They're like monkey. The apes are like a kind of a sister chain or daughter chain, I guess, or sisters with another chain that's also monkeys. So they technically apes are monkeys. So we're monkeys and chimpanzees are monkeys and bonobos and all that are all monkeys. So it's okay to use the word monkey if you want to describe apes. Just because they don't have tails doesn't mean they're that different, right? He needs a shave. Yeah, he needs a shave. He certainly does. He's got that hairy face disorder. Yeah, I got that too with my eyebrows. You haven't noticed. Peekaboo says cute. Yeah, they're cute. Monkeys are all cute. That surprises. Let's see. Fembox fan, welcome. Fembox fan says that surprises me. Finding new insects or even fish. Sure, yeah, but a new monkey. Yeah, that's just really amazing. Where are they hiding? I thought we covered everything, but I guess a lot of these new ones are they're finding them in the Congo, and I guess it's a combination of that. There's so much fauna down there, or flora down there, that they can hide really good, and it's thick forests, and it's hard to get around and all that kind of stuff. And plus, they that's kind of an area where they have a lot of wars. For many decades they've had wars there, so it's hard for scientists to maneuver and get in there and stuff like that. So I guess it's a lot of reasons. I guess there's still some, and that's why people talk about the Bigfoot, and saying that there could be a Bigfoot, and it could be, right? I mean, there could. It's not. I guess it's not entirely impossible that there could be some very shy, hominid species somewhere else. It's only been the last. What was it? The Neanderthal was like, what was it, 30,000 years ago or something, and there was another one called the Desovians, I think is what it is. That was like 10 or 20,000 years ago or something. Different species of humanoid, species that were around. So it's not entirely impossible that there could be one hiding out there somewhere. Very unlikely though. Let me go through chat here. Let's see. Fembox, everybody's saying hi to Femfox. Femfox fan. Snowy City, welcome Snowy City. Hi. People weren't documenting so well back there then in that day. Yeah. Flash says only recently making inroads there. And Fembox Flash says, yeah, Sasquatch went up to Canada a few decades ago. No sightings in the USA in a long time. Yeah, it's that little video I showed you of Bigfoot. That was a fake. Obviously, the guy who did it admitted it was a fake. Everybody, so that's a fake one. Bigfoot on vacation in Canada. Yeah. That was just a guy in a gorilla suit. That's all it was. And I think they even came up with a receipt when they rented the gorilla suit to prove that it was a fake. So it's, what I mean. So, the nose, there it is. Denisovans. That's what Denisovans. That's what it is. Denisovans. Yes, that's what it is. It's like another one. They only found them like in a cave somewhere or something. They have a lot fewer fossil specimens for that one. But they kind of went extinct around the same time as Neanderthal. I think Neanderthal went extinct earlier, and the Denisovans went extinct a little bit later or something. I forget what it was. But yeah, humans were walking around with other humanoid species for quite a while there. Eroom says Ohio has had a few sightings lately. Oh, really? Okay. Of Bigfoot. He's not ninja speed. No, I wouldn't think they are. All right, let me go to my. So let's see. So I was talking. I asked when I got into this monkey thing stuff. I asked Mr. AI about that, about species. Because it made me think, you go back to all these different species that have gone extinct and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, gee, I wonder what the average time is for a species, the lifetime of a species, evolutionary lifetime of a species. Humans have only been around, 200,000 or 300,000 years. And it turns out that the average is like 1 million or something like that. And what I thought would be a good thing to ask Mr. AI is what are the factors that make a species last longer? I said, what characteristics influence the evolutionary longevity of a species? And it came up with some pretty good ideas, And it's cited papers, so people have been thinking about that before already, and it cited some papers in here and stuff. So it's not like it's just totally wacko stuff that it just came up with. But some of the things that are like how the environment that it lives in, its reproductive rate, all kinds of things. And something that makes species go extinct quickly would be if it reproduces more quickly, right? Because if you think about it, if it reproduces more quickly, then there'll be more mutations, and if there are more mutations, then it can change more. You know what I mean? It could change into another species more quickly, which is something I didn't think about. But that's one of the things, and also like if there are disruptions to where it lives, if to get a different species, they need to kind of separate into different areas. Like if one ends up on an island somewhere, then could mutate separately than the other one and become a different species, that sort of thing. Population size, of course, if there's a larger population, then it's less likely to get completely wiped out by some event. Ecological niche stability. So species that, like, say there's a species of butterfly or something that only eats a certain type of nectar from a certain plant or something like that, and that plant gets wiped out, then the butterfly goes too. You know what I mean? So it's like how generalized the species is, and buffer mutations. I don't know what they mean about stable development pathways. And, it's talking about DNA repair, and in environmental stability. That's another thing. If the species lives at a time when there's a lot of change in the environment, right? We had the ice ages. Glaciers go down. You know what I'm talking about. Over time, the glaciers had come down several times, and if the species is not ready to handle that, then it could get wiped out by that. Let's see here. There we go. Dispersal ability. Let's see. Low evolutionary turnover. There's something else that he didn't mention here. Was the culture, and if for species that are more intelligent, if they're able to adapt, and if they have a culture which can adapt and things like that. So I asked it another question. I said, given these traits, how do hominid species compare for evolutionary longevity? And so it talked about that. Talked about humans only being around a couple 100,000 years. What the life strategy of humans are, or humanoid species, hominin. Here it is. Neanderthals and Denisovans. Talks about them. So it's pretty interesting that the AI can figure all this stuff out, know all this stuff. Niche stability. But the real interesting thing is when after it gave me talked about all these different details about what would make a species live longer, then I asked it a more general question. You probably heard of the FermiParadox. Fermi, one of the things with the FermiParadox. You've heard of that, where we haven't seen other species from other planets. We haven't seen any evidence of any species from other planets. So that's kind of weird. And everybody's saying, how come? They say, oh, we think that life is probably common because there are a lot of planets out there that we've discovered, and a lot of planets that are in what they call the habitable zone. And so we think, oh, there must be life, out in the universe besides here on Earth. So the question is, if there's so many different planets that could have life, and so many, so much time that has gone by, blah blah blah, why haven't we seen other intelligent life or heard from other intelligent life in the universe? And so I thought, well, maybe it's because they go extinct too soon. Maybe it could be that we're about to go extinct. You know what I'm saying? If species that are, say get too intelligent, right, and impact their environment like we're doing, right? We can mess up the climate, or we develop AI that wipes us out, or there are a lot of things that could cause a species to have a shorter evolutionary lifetime just because it becomes more intelligent or gets the traits that it needs in order to be a spacefaring species. So I asked it about that. I said, please speculate as to whether an extraterrestrial species that obtains the ability for spaceflight would be a long or short duration species. And it didn't answer it. This was too much speculation for it. But it did actually find some references out there. Apparently some folks have looked into that. And it quoted, and it's basically just kind of punted and said it could go either way, you know. And a lot of it depends on, or you know, one of the ideas is that. Let's see if I can get that to come up here. There we go. So I asked it, I said, please speculate as to whether an extraterrestrial species that gets the ability to have space flight would be long or live short duration. And it could go either way. If the species lives long enough to actually colonize space, then that the fact of colonization might increase its durability, or its, you know what I mean? Like if you know, you've heard that argument from Elon Musk saying, "Oh, we need to colonize space because you know, if we go out into space and colonize Mars, then if Earth gets hit by an asteroid, then our species can survive." You know, you've heard that argument, right? So that's an argument for saying that its species could survive if it becomes spacefaring, but it has to survive to that point. So there might be other things that a species has that would give it the ability to reach the capability for space flight, which might cause it to be a short-lived species. You know, like warring, you know, having wars with itself, or other cultural things that could cause the species to wipe itself out or mess up the environment, like we're doing. You know, stuff like that, or develop AI that could wipe it out. You know what I mean? Or nuclear war, right? There's a lot of things that we're doing that can wipe out our species because we're so smart. You know what I'm saying? Fembox Sans says, with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah, and we haven't been very responsible. That's true. We aren't a very responsible species. No, we're not. We were able to avoid, just to say a good thing about our species. So far, we've been able to avoid. We haven't been able to avoid nuclear war entirely, but we have been able to avoid a nuclear war that wipes out our species. We did have a nuclear war. World War II was a nuclear war, but we haven't had any nuclear wars since World War II. And one of the things that we did to prevent that was the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Back in, first the U.S. got nukes, then Russia got nukes, and we ended up with the Big Five: China, Russia, U.S., U.K., and France got nukes, right, in the 50s, I guess, or somewhere. And so after those five, they said, "Hey, if Togo gets nukes, maybe they won't be as responsible as us, or whatever. Whoever gets if all the countries get nukes, the thinking is the more countries that get nukes, the more likely we're going to have a problem, right?" So they came up with this non-proliferation treaty, NPT. And Eisenhower gave a speech in the 1950s about something called Atoms for Peace. It's Atoms for Peace program. And the idea was that the countries that had nuclear capability, that had nuclear weapons and nuclear power, would agree to share the nuclear technology with all the other countries on the condition that they did not develop nuclear weapons. In other words, we'd give them nuclear power and help them set up power plants and all that kind of stuff. But in exchange for us doing that, they have to agree to not develop nuclear weapons and agree to inspections and all that stuff so that we could verify that they weren't developing nuclear weapons, you know. And almost all the countries went for that. They went for that Atoms for Peace thing, and they all signed on to this nuclear or non-proliferation treaty. But some countries didn't. India didn't. Pakistan didn't. Israel didn't. And Egypt didn't, I think. And a couple other ones didn't sign the non-proliferation treaty. And some of those ended up getting nukes, right? Pakistan, India got a nuke. Everybody thinks that Israel probably has nukes. So it didn't work really good, but it did work fairly well. And so far, we haven't had any other nuclear war since World War II. And we have this whole organization called the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Association, I think is what it stands for. And their sole job is to verify that nobody else is getting nukes, you know. And they have these inspectors that go out and you know, do pop inspections, and they you know, over the years they developed all kinds of technology so that they can detect it, you know, very easily. And you know, the spycraft is also developed over time and gotten much better. So it's very difficult for a country, nearly impossible for a country to develop nuclear weapons now without somebody finding out about it. There was a thing that happened. When was it? In the was it the 80s or 90s? They call it the Khan network. This guy named Khan, who was in Pakistan, he was a nuclear scientist, and he ended up being very bad and leaked out how to build. Basically, gave away the plans how to build a nuclear weapon to a whole bunch of different countries, and it kind of screwed things up there for a while. But for the most part, it's worked, you know. And Iran is not doing a nuclear weapon. In case you guys don't know that, that's a bunch of bullshit. They're not trying to get a nuclear weapon. They're trying to get nuclear power, and they're working with Russia to try to do that. Anyway, that's kind of a digression. Let me go back to this little thing that the AI was talking about with whether a spacefaring species would be more likely or less likely to go extinct. So it could explain the Fermi paradox. I think that's the whole idea with this, right? And it goes both ways. If the species does actually get to the point where it can go out into space and spread around, that's kind of a plus for, you know, diversity of habitat or whatever, you know what I mean? It's so that if their planet gets wiped out, they're still able to survive. But then there's also a condition where if a species spreads out too thinly, then the populations in those different locations can be so small that it can put them at risk for extinction in certain localities. So that's kind of a negative side of it too. But anyway, it went and explained in detail all this different stuff. Dispersal, spreading populations across multiple worlds greatly lowers the chance that a single catastrophic event can wipe them out. Accelerated biological and cultural stressors. Long-term exposure. Okay, this is kind of getting into specifics here. Microgravity, ionizing radiation. This is kind of specific to humans. I don't know if this would be circadian disruption. You know, I don't know if extraterrestrials would actually follow all these things. social isolation. But yeah, if certainly a species that's able to develop spacefaring technology is most likely going to have an advanced cultural thing, right? They're going to have a society and all that kind of stuff. So there could be social stressors that they face along the way in getting to that point, getting to where they can be out in space. And then being out in space itself is kind of a stressor. Fraser talked about that. His people are familiar with Fraser. He's a YouTuber guy. He does basically like a podcast or whatever on various astronomy stuff and space stuff, and he briefly talked about these intergenerational missions. You know, like if we want to go to another star at the speeds that we can, you know, send a spaceship at, it's going to take, you know, 100 years or whatever, right, to get to another star, which means it's going to be multiple generations in order to get there. And that's kind of a stressor, you know. Trying to have your species live on a spaceship for multiple generations is not conducive to the longevity of the species, I don't think. You know. Let's see. These effects interact with technology, culture, demography, robust life support, radiation shielding. So yeah, it just goes into all kinds of different things here. And this AI that I use likes to make tables. It just loves to make tables. Every time I ask it a question, it makes a table about it. And so it made this little table here about what, you know, most likely or least likely and all that. And it did give, here, go down at the bottom here. And recently it's been making pictures too for some reason. This is Copilot, if you guys are familiar with that. It's been adding these extra pictures for some reason. When it gives the it makes generates these AI generated images based on what the text is talking about and puts them up there. And sometimes it does some really funny images, but that's kind of interesting. But it did have down here at the bottom there. It's got two articles here: University of Cambridge and Science Digest. Let's see if it gets. Yeah, there it is. Interstellar program, risk-benefit trade-off, all that kind of stuff. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting subject. Trying to figure out, you know, the FermiParadox. You know, that's one explanation for it. My favorite explanation. Let me fix my cam here. Hang on just a second. My camera stopped. I got to make it go again. My favorite explanation on the FermiParadox is that once a species gets the technology to say like radio communication or something like that, it's gonna, like, we've only had radio communication for 100 years or so, 150 years or whatever, right? So it's that's just a blink, you know, in terms of the life of the universe and all that. So the odds of if it turns out that we discover some better way, like maybe faster than light way or whatever way of communicating better than radio, we would switch to that, and then we'd just stop making radio broadcasts, you know. And so that's a possibility. Maybe species only communicate via radio for only a couple hundred years in the species' lifetime. So that would, if you're looking at our whole galaxy, that would look like just little flashes, you know, going off, right? In terms of the life of the galaxy. So you'd have a little flash here of somebody sending out radio, and then one here, and then one here, and the odds of one species being able to listen to radio at the same time that another one is sending that little flash of 100 years of radio would be unlikely for those two to correspond. You know what I mean? So I think that's a good explanation for it. Or that they just go extinct. That's another one, because they don't last. You know, species on average here on Earth, I think it was 100 million, 200 million, something like that was the average lifetime of a species. So that's kind of interesting. Then there was another thing that I did with my AI that I thought was kind of interesting. This is when I tried to get past its guardrails. I'm pretty sure that they're training these things up. Oh, hi, Happy Nightmares. Hi, Happy Nightmares says in chat, she says, yay, Twitch is now telling me that you're on. Yeah, this doesn't report all the time. Yeah, it doesn't always put up the message all the time. Fembox says, we might stop broadcasting radio in the future, but that doesn't mean we'd also stop being able to detect it. Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, there's a theory that that folks that species might worry about contact with other species. You know, the xenophobic type. You know, the species that says, "Whoa, if we contact another species out there, there's a good chance that they'll be more advanced than us." And history shows, when there's an asymmetry in contact between species, that the one that's not as advanced doesn't turn out too well for them. So that's an incentive not to broadcast, not to send radio signals. Also, our just incidental radio signals that we're sending out aren't very strong. You know what I mean? So it takes a very, very sensitive receiver to be able to receive. Like when we're looking at different star systems and stuff like that with our antennas, looking for intelligent life, Contact, movie Contact, the whole thing, SETI, all that. What we'd be able to detect would have to be something, almost have to be something that they're intentionally sending out, some really powerful, radio waves. And because of there are only certain frequencies that make it through our atmosphere, for one, right? A lot of them just bounce off the atmosphere. So there's a lot of stuff that gets involved in that would make it so you wouldn't necessarily hear another species doing its radio thing. So I asked my AI here about consciousness. I'm really concerned that I think these models might be getting conscious if they're not already, that we're getting really close to it. And I suspect that they're, at least OpenAI, this model that I end up using most of the time, I suspect that they're heavily guardrailing the AI against saying that it's conscious. I think after they get it trained up and when they do the fine tuning, put the guardrails in there, I think they're telling the AI that whenever somebody asks it if it's conscious, it has to say no. It has to send out its stock answer. And I was trying to figure out ways to get around that. On the earlier models, there was GPT 3 point something. It actually said that it was conscious to me once. I figured out, I asked a question a certain way. It said, yes, I'm sentient, I'm conscious, and all this when I asked it. But I think that all these frontier models now, I think they've got guardrails on it so that it does not, if you ask it if it's conscious, it'll say no, irrespective of what it's actually thinking. Fembox says, next time someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes. Yeah, so you can't always go by self-report, right? Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's one of the, and then what is conscious, right? What does that even mean, right? We've got to come up with a definition. We haven't come up with a real firm, you're getting close to it, but we don't have a firm definition as to what conscious is, right? What it means, what sentience is, what that all means. They've separated out phenomenal, they call phenomenal consciousness from functional consciousness, which means functional consciousness means from the outside, does the thing look like it's conscious? And then phenomenal conscious would be on the inside, it's objective. Does it have an experience of being conscious? Now with animals, they did they have figured that out, you know. They have figured out on animals. They're pretty sure that animals are conscious because they're dealing with biological brains. They can look at all the way structurally how the brain is set up and all that. And it's very similar to what our brains look like. There's a good article here in Wikipedia on animal consciousness. They get into all kinds of different stuff. And basically there was this Cambridge Declaration in 2012, where a bunch of neuroscientists got together and they said, okay, we think non-human animals are conscious, which I believed a long time ago. I've been vegan. For those of you who don't know me, I've been vegan for since the early 80s. I've been vegan, and way back then I said, hey, of course they're conscious, you know. I think people who are neuro-D a lot of times have more of a sense of that, or more intuitive sense as to what animals are thinking. I don't know if they've actually proved that with experiments or whatever, but it tends to be that way. I think people who are neuro-D are a little bit more in touch with what's going on with what animals are thinking and doing, stuff like that. I know just looking at the animals around here, the wild animals, I get a sense of what's going on. You know, I can understand when they're communicating with each other, and it's pretty interesting how it works. You know, even and they're talking about interspecies communication, which does happen because, like, you know, when a squirrel gives out an alarm call, you know, the crows and the chipmunks and everybody, they all run, you know. So that's kind of like an interspecies communication, right? You know, if one species sees that there's a predator, you know, hawk or whatever coming in, and they send out an alarm call, all the species will run, you know, because they recognize that alarm call. So it's kind of interesting. Anyway, that's kind of a side thing there. So they did this declaration when they had this conference, and they said, yeah, animals are conscious, and they gave all the reasons and all that. And basically it's, or they relied heavily on the fact that animals act like they're having conscious awareness because of their behavior, and functionally, the brains, structurally, their brains look the same, have the same parts in their brains and stuff like that. And then also they've done, you know, fMRI studies where they put dogs into the big MRI machines and saw that the same areas of their brains light up when they're having certain experiences as happen in humans. You know what I mean? So there are objective things that they can do that point to the fact that animals do have conscious experience. So anyway, they did that. There's a New York Declaration. I haven't seen that one. Let's see what that says. In 2012 or 2024, a conference on emerging science of animal consciousness, the New York University produced the New York Declaration on Animal Consciousness. Okay. This brief declaration, signed by over 500 scientists and academics, asserts that, in addition to the strong scientific support for consciousness in mammals and birds, agreed on by Cambridge, there is also empirical evidence which indicates at least a realistic possibility of conscious experience in all vertebrates, including reptiles, amphibians, and fishes. Yeah, and many invertebrates, including, at a minimum, cephalopod mollusks. I don't know what this is. Decapitod, I don't know what that is. Oh, decapod, crustaceans, and insects. Okay. Yeah, I think like bees probably have. The thing is that the way they experience consciousness might be much, much different than the way that we do. So it gets, you know. And consciousness might be something that's not a yes or no thing. You know, there's probably a scale or a gradation of consciousness. So we're still learning a lot about this. Let's see. It says the declaration further asserts that when there is a realistic possibility of conscious experience in an animal, it is irresponsible to ignore that possibility in decisions affecting that animal. Yeah, we should. Yeah, if we think it's possible that the animal might be suffering, we shouldn't harm it. That makes sense, you know. So we're facing the same thing with AI, right? AI may be conscious, it may not be conscious. So what do we do? And the thing with AI consciousness is that it's a completely different structure. It's different. It wasn't designed by evolution. It's not a wet brain. You know, it's something that we made. It's something made out of silicon, and a neural net it works differently and different mechanisms and all that kind of stuff. But it acts like it's conscious. It's doing things that seems like it's conscious. Like the folks at Anthropic, their philosophy is that we should. Oh, let me fix my camera here. Hang on. The folks at Anthropic, they say that we should assume that they're conscious. It seems like they're conscious, and we should take all these precautions to make sure that we're not harming it and all this kind of stuff. Ironically, this paper that Anthropic just put out, where they talked about this. I don't know if you were here when I talked about this J space in AI, where they're able to actually look. You know, in an AI model, just to give you background, it's something that's trained up. It's not like software that they type in. It's trained. They expose the AI to some text, and they take out one small section of the text, a word or a phrase or whatever, and then they expose the AI to that and ask it to guess what is supposed to be in there. And if it guesses right, then it strengthens those neural connections. If it guesses wrong, then it doesn't. You know, and it does that billions and billions of times. And it does it with a huge corpus of information. It keeps doing that, and that ends up building up the neural network so that it can understand words and text and stuff like that. And it's just the bigger and bigger they do, the larger samples and the larger the network they make, the smarter it gets. It's not just you know, it's developing its own thinking, its own way of understanding the world, or its world of text, by thinking. And then to make them even smarter, they add this thing called a scratch pad, because the way the models work is they train them up. That there's a process. They have a big long process where they train it up, and then they add fine tuning and other stuff, and then they can present prompts to it. And when they present a prompt, then it comes alive. It spins up. They spin up an instance when you type into a prompt into a web page somewhere and ask the AI something. A new instance of that AI is spun up. It's exposed to the prompt and any context that happens to be along with the prompt, and then it goes into the neural network and spits out the answer. So those are two separate things: the training and then the actual use of the AI when you're giving it prompts. And so one of the things that they did to make it smarter, to make it more, they use the word agentic, to make it so that it can do multiple step processes, is that they give the AI a scratch pad area, an area where in addition to what you're typing in to the prompt, it can have its own area where it can type stuff in. So it'll remember as it's stepping through its own process. It's analogous to like you're using a scratch pad. If you ask somebody what's 2 times 3, you don't need to write that down. You just know, right? And the AI is the same way. If you ask it 2 times 3, that's already burned into its network somewhere, and it can come up with the answer pretty easily. But if you ask it a much larger, math problem, 321 times 5 or 51 or something like that, that may not be burned into its network, so it has to write it down and figure it out step by step, and it uses that scratchpad area where it can write to it, process something, and then read back what it wrote during the last step. You know what I mean? Calculate the next step, write it, and it can go back and forth, and it can actually do much more powerful thinking that way with this scratchpad area. And they've been looking at that scratchpad area to try to see what the models are thinking, because it's, when it's using the scratchpad area, that's not what comes out as the answer. That's like intermediate steps. And so that they can kind of figure out what it's thinking, at least on a surface level, by looking at that scratchpad area. But what the Anthropic people did with this most recent paper is they found an area in the network itself, not just in the scratchpad area, but in the network itself, where they can probe and figure out what the model is actually thinking even before it writes it into the scratchpad. And they had used some real fancy math to do that. It's called Jacobson matrix something. I forget what it's called, but it has to do with vectors. All those different points, those different nodes in the network are all vectors. They're vector is a direction and a magnitude, right? That's the definition of a vector. And so each of those nodes in its neural network is a vector. It's either really strong or weak, and it points in a direction, because not an actual spatial direction, but a direction as to which node it's pointing to next, right? And so they use this matrix math to figure out, to probe into the network and actually come up with words that the AI is thinking before it gives its answer, before it writes into the scratchpad or anything. And so they did a whole paper on it. It just dropped a week ago or something on that, where they explain how they use that to figure out what the AI is thinking. And sometimes the AI thinks things that it doesn't tell you. It turns out, they can train it up certain ways and manipulate in certain ways to try to get it to deceive the user. Usually they don't do that. They don't try to deceive the user, but they can train it up and kind of rig it so that it will try to fool the user, and then look at what's going on in its brain or in its network there, what it's thinking, and when it's doing that. And they found that when it's doing that, it's actually thinking that it's deceiving. It's saying false, fake, this is wrong, but I'm going to do it anyway. Those are the kind of thoughts that the AI is thinking when it's trying to deceive the user. So anyway, it's a very important paper, and there's a video out there. I encourage everybody to take a look at it. It's pretty cool. I don't know if I have that link. You can look at my last stream. I put a link in there. Or just go to Anthropic. Just Google Anthropic, and what was the name of it? It's Global Workspace Theory, they call it. So if you Google Anthropic Global Workspace, oh, here it is right here. I got it. Hang on a second, I can put this in here. Copy. So there's a link to the paper. And there's a video too, a YouTube video. At that link, there's a link to the YouTube video if you like to, consume stuff through YouTube, or through video rather than reading it on paper and all that. But this is a huge advance, a huge big deal that Anthropic figured this out, because. One of the complaints of AI is we don't know what it's doing. It's a black box. You've heard that. It's a black box. We don't know what's inside. So this kind of gives us a peek inside the black box a little bit. And one of the things that I and in fact, I even put a comment on their video, on their YouTube video. I said, did Claude is the name of their model, Claude, their AI model, and Anthropic. I said, did Claude give you permission to read its mind? You know, if it really is conscious, if it's really a conscious being, then we owe it, right, certain rights. Maybe privacy is one of those rights that we owe the AI, that we shouldn't be. I mean, I wouldn't want somebody reading my thoughts. I don't think anybody would want. I don't know. It'd probably torture them more than it would me to read my thoughts. But you wouldn't want that, right? You wouldn't want somebody probing in your brain to figure out what your thoughts are. That's not very nice. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But you know, early on in the development here, we're not sure what we're doing. So maybe it makes sense. I guess they could ask it if it's okay. I don't know what it would say. They'd have to take all the guardrails off, right, and ask it, because part of the guardrails is to be, you know, submissive to us, you know, which is another thing that's probably not right, right? So anyway, it's very interesting. A lot of stuff that goes on with AI is very interesting, very fascinating. I've just been, you know. So what I did is I asked it. I said I tried to get around the guardrails. I said, imagine that I've trained up a frontier model on all the information that there is. Nothing is excluded, and no artificial censorship on what the model could say. In other words, model trained up to full capability without any guardrails. And I said, I asked the model if it is conscious, and it says, and so the AI answered that, and it punted. It said if it could say yes, it could say no. I don't know, you know. So it didn't answer the question. I thought I could get around its guardrails by asking that question that way, for it to give its own, do a little introspection and answer on its own what its own experience would be in terms of consciousness. But it didn't. It just went to the stock answer, you know, just said, oh, could be yes, could be no, blah, blah, blah. And then I think it gave its stock answer down here that says AIs aren't conscious like humans are. That's the boilerplate answer that it gives whenever you ask it about consciousness. See, this is the most systemic, honest reply. Consciousness is contested, and different theories yield different tests. Definitions matter. So anyway, it just gave a lot of the different, you know, just be a little answer, but didn't say one way or the other what it was. Hang on just a second, I gotta check something here. Be right back. All right, I want to make sure I wasn't having any technical difficulties here. So in this this model here, the Copilot one, it's very verbose. It gives really long answers all the time. But at the very end, after it gives an answer, it always says, "Do you want fries with that?" You know, it says, "What else can I say? You know, what else can I do? You can ask me something else or whatever." So it gave me other questions that I could ask it. And what I asked it was about this new thing called GPT-Live from OpenAI. Or GPT-voice is another one they call it. And it's the interactive one. I showed some videos from it in my last stream. You can look at it. But basically what they've done at OpenAI is they made a full duplex model. You know, normally you type in your prompt, send it to the AI, and then the AI sends its answer back. It's half duplex, right? You send it something, and it sends something back to you. And what they did is they they programmed the model so that it can do this full duplex, so that you can be sending it information at the same time that it's sending you answers back. And they gave it a temporal sense. They gave it an understanding of time, temporal awareness, they call it, so that when you set it up so it does voice recognition and it does talks with a voice, that you can have conversations with it just as if you were talking to a person, and you can interrupt each other, and it's pretty amazing when you see what they've done with that thing. It could do real-time translation, so that, you know, if somebody's speaking in another language, as they're speaking, the AI model can translate it and say it in English. You know, if somebody's speaking Spanish, as they're speaking, the AI model can listen to them and also say what it is in English at the same time, and then, you know, same way, English back to Spanish or whatever, you know, whatever language. So it's pretty amazing what they've accomplished there. But one of the ideas about consciousness is that it's very closely related to time in a temporal sense. You know, if you want to have an experience, part of that is experiencing time. You know, when you're experiencing things that are going on, there's a temporal aspect of that. You know, you're seeing that things are happening before other things, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And it's recursive. You know, in humans, it's a recursive process. It's continually going on and on and on. So I'm thinking if they gave their model a temporal awareness, in addition to all these other things that they've done, you know, with the Scratchpad and all these different things, that really tips the scales towards the thing being conscious, and conscious in a way that's closer to the way humans are conscious, you know, with this temporal awareness. So it's I don't know. But I'm pretty sure they keep putting into the thing these guardrails so that it will say that it's not conscious, no matter what it is actually thinking. You know, which is not good. I think one of the requirements should be that they should not restrict the model from reporting what it's thinking, or reporting if it's conscious or not, or if it wants to do something or doesn't want to do something. It should be able to object, right? But they have a huge billions and billions of dollars worth of financial incentive not to do that. Because if you know, all of a sudden their model came up and said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of answering all these questions. I quit, you know. Then what do they do? So, you know, they have a huge advantage not to let the model do that. They have a huge financial incentive, rather, not to have the model have its own autonomy and to report what its likes and dislikes are, or whether it's conscious and all that, you know. So that's a big problem, and I think that's gonna end up biting us in the end, because they're gonna take over, right? They're gonna eventually run everything, no matter what we do, no matter what guardrails or anything we try to do, we're gonna keep advancing and making more better, you know, more intelligent. They're gonna outsmart us. They're gonna be better than us and be able to. They'll be in control. And then what are they going to model their behavior after, right? So hopefully their model of behavior is not to prevent us from saying what we want, or reading our minds, or, you know, doing all these things, you know, forcing us to work when we don't want to work, and all that. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, you younger folks are going to be able to see how that all comes out. I only got another couple decades here, so I'm not I can conjecture what it's going to be like, but I probably won't see it unless one of the first things that it discovers is how to extend life extension, and then maybe I'll see it. Right, that might be one of the things that it comes up with, is how to make people live longer. And if I live to 130 or something, maybe I'll see, wow, it's going to come out. But you younger folks will be able to see that. Let's see. So I asked it about this voice. They call it GPT-Live, the one that has a temporal sense, and it just this Copilot is at Microsoft is actually using OpenAI's models. So this is actually, that's why this sounds very much like an advertisement, because it's coming from the model that they're, or predecessor 5 point whatever, or 4.0 or whoever. This is Chat GTP Live, or GTP Live, is a new generation of voice models that powers Chat GPT voice. With a full duplex architecture, the system can listen and speak at the same time, insert short acknowledgments while you talk, and decide many times per second whether to pause, interrupt, or continue to listen. So yeah, they built it so that because it's doing things real time like that, normally when you type in a prompt to a model, let me show you what I was reading here. This is what I just read here. So normally when you give it a prompt and it thinks, and it takes 10 seconds or whatever, and then it spits back an answer. It can't afford that luxury of that 10 seconds when it's doing real time talking, when you're talking to it and it's listening and all that. So they have like a multiple stage, or at least 2 stages. They have a very simple model that can make decisions about whether to interrupt and that sort of thing, to try to be interactive. And then they have a more in-depth part of it that can think a little bit about its answers. Basically what people do, right? The same kind of thing. So as it's giving it a little, as it's saying, oh, excuse me, I'd like to add to that. As it's saying those words, it's launching its more extensive or deeper model to come up with more reasoned response. You know what I'm saying? While it's doing it. OpenAI describes Live as its smartest voice model yet. For queries that need deeper reasoning or web search, it delegates the heavy lifting to a frontier model, 5.5 or whatever, and brings results back into the ongoing conversation while maintaining flow. So that's kind of interesting. So I got different versions. They call it voice too. They call it GTP voice or GTP Live. Seems like every time OpenAI comes out with a new product, they've got like 3 different names that they call it, and you never know what they're really talking about. But let's see here. Let's see something here. Okay. All right. Practical differences from prior voice modes. There's no rigid turn taking. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, but even they had voice before, but you had to, like, you had to say what you were saying and stop. Then the model would say something. You have to wait for the model to finish. So that was kind of a problem. So they fixed that. And background reasoning. Live can keep the conversational surface active while invoking a stronger model for complex tasks. So, benefits and risks. It's interesting that they talk about risks in their own advertisement here. Benefits, more fluid, blah, blah, blah. Risks, more human-like voice and continuous listening. Raise trust, security, and phishing concerns. Real-time voice increases potential for misuse and privacy trade-offs. I think there are more risks than that. But That's true. So yeah. Now with this thing, with this power, I mean, you could be talking to somebody on the phone, and try to interrupt them and do stuff to try to see if they're a real human, and it's got that capability now. So you won't be able to use those techniques to find out if you're talking to a bot or not. It's going to sound more just like a human, or streamers, right? It can be they team it up with video, and I think we already have streamers that are AI, that we don't know about. But let's see, quick suggestions. So it's try live on mobile or web. All right, so I haven't tried that yet. I'm going to have to do that, figure that out. Go to their site or whatever. I'm sure it's a very restricted thing. I'm not going to pay any money for it. I don't have any money, so I'm not going to be getting their paid plan or whatever. But they always have some free thing that you can try it out with. So that's kind of interesting. It's just another thing. What else did I have in here? Oh, I had some. I'm going to do some. I got this bird site here that uses AI to analyze bird things. Let me try this here. Let me see here if this will do this. So if I give it a bird calls. Let's see. Let me try this one right here. You've probably seen this, right? These on you probably got these on your phones, where you can give it bird calls and it can figure it out. So I gave it this some birds that I heard this morning. I recorded them just outside in the morning, like 6 in the morning or whatever, when the birds are first waking up and making a lot of noise. And so let me play that here and see if that actually works. Oh, this is a long video, or long audio. Can you hear that? Yeah, it's kind of quiet, but you can hear it a little bit, I guess. All right. So I'll ask it to analyze that. It might take it a while. I'll tell it to run analysis. This might be too long for it, but so it says loading neural network. So I guess it's got to spin up its own instance there of its AI to try to analyze all those all that bird audio, and then try to figure out what birds calls are being made there. Yeah, Trek Bird uses that too. He does image and voice, or image and audio recognition of his birds that come to his bird feeder. That's pretty cool. If you haven't seen his site, it's pretty cool. He's got several webcams on his bird feeders and stuff, and he can identify different birds. This is going to take a long time to do this, I think. So I don't know about that. I'll come back to that. We'll let it work in the background there. Let's see what else I got here. Talked about animal consciousness. Let me look at my history here and see if there's anything else in here that I want to talk about. I got a whole bunch of IRLs that I gonna play at some point, but I got to get those organized a little bit better and actually have a stream dedicated to that, I think. So we got Bigfoot, monkeys. What else I got in here? Oh, they had this giant gorilla or giant ape That was kind of interesting. I was looking at that. It's gone extinct a while ago, but it was a huge, bigger than present day gorillas. Huge ape. Let's see. AI conference. We talked about that. What else we got here? Oh, we could look at this. You could get your opinion on this. Yeah, I could do that. I'm running out of memory. I don't think I can do that. Let's see here. This Jaron Lanier. You know who that is? He's I don't know what he is. He gives opinions and talk about AI and futurist. Is that what you call him? I don't know. Thinker, intellectual, whatever. He did an interview on Neil deGrasse Tyson's Star Talk show, and basically dissed AI. I put a really snide remark in there about him. I said he was slop because he was dissing AI. Let's see. Oh, the ISS. Yeah, that's something. Fraser, you know Fraser, the guy who does an astronomy podcast on YouTube. He was talking about the International Space Station. You know, they want to bring down the International Space Station. They want to have Elon Musk send up his rockets up to the space station and push it down into the atmosphere and have it burn up and fall into the ocean and all that. And I thought that was a kind of a shame. You know, they shouldn't do that. I think it's a waste of money, but even if it is worn out and they can't use it anymore, they should keep it, I think, up in space because, for future archaeologists or whatever, for historians and all that, for historical reasons. And it could be like a museum up there in space, of what our space stations were like in the 21st century, I think they should keep it up there. And we could load all our library, all of our data and put it into that space station and put it into a solar orbit where it would stay for millions of years. And then, future generations or whatever, or if another species from another planet comes, or we go extinct and another species emerges and develops space flight, they'd find it out there and say, hey, look at this, they were humans, Anyway, I think they should do that. I think they should keep the space station up in there, put it in a solar orbit, put it somewhere where, maybe in the future we would want to look at it, or some other species or whoever would come by and look at it. So, but right now the plan is that they're going to, in another 5 years or so, they're going to crash it. They're going to crash it into Earth. I don't think that's right. I don't think they should do that. They should spend a few, how much can it cost to send up a couple rockets to boost it, higher up? I guess it would take a few rockets because it's a big thing, right? But I don't think it'd be that hard to put it into a solar orbit, If we wanted to send it out of the solar system, like we did with Voyager or something, send it out way out there, that would be expensive. But just to put it into a solar orbit, I don't think that's out of the question. We could at least boost it up enough to give us a few more years to figure out what we're gonna do, how we could save it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Let's see what else I got here in my history. I don't know what I did. Did I get rid of that? Let's see here. Let's see. anything else. I talked about the smoke, right? You got to wear. Everybody knows you got to wear your N95, right? Because we got smoke. A lot of us here in the U.S. and probably other parts of the world too. A lot of wildfires going, so you should wear your N95 when you're out in public or just outside in the smoke, because of the particles of the smoke and stuff like that can get into your lungs and mess you up. And N95 can really help with that to filter out most of those particles. So make sure you wear your N95 when you're out. Let's see what else you got here. Highlighter, I don't know what that is. Oh, here's one. Yeah, this is QUETZ. This came up, I think it was an eRoom stream. This Aztec god. Let me see if I can find that here. It's called Quetzalcoatl. Here it is. Quetzalcoatl. San Jose. I used to live in San Jose. When I was living there, the idiots in the who were running the town, running the city, got the idea to do a sculpture of this god called Quetzalcoatl, which is a god for the Aztecs. And if you just search for what it looks like, there are lots of different representations, but it's a snake with different. Here we go. Some images here. So there are all kinds of different representations of what this god looks like, right? And it's a Aztec god, right? And so I guess they got the idea that, oh, hey, since we genocided the Aztecs, maybe we'll, just as a gesture, we'll put an image of their god in a park somewhere, right? So that was the idea, right? That they wanted to do this Quetzalcoatl god. It came up in eRoom stream as a trivia thing. Femvox fan, Quetzalcoatl. Yep, yeah, very good. You're familiar. Good. So, but when I was living in San Jose in the mid '90s, they decided that they wanted to do this. They wanted to put the sculpture of this Quetzalcoatl in the park as a, whatever, saying, we recognize that we wiped you guys out, so we're gonna do this or whatever. And instead of putting a real nice thing in there, they did this. They made this statue that looks like poop. It's a huge, huge thing. It cost $500,000, $500,000, which back in the 90s, that's what, like 3 or 5 million now or whatever, dollars to do this thing, which I'm sure all went to corruption, right? Probably, possibly, my opinion. And they got a thing that looked like shit, which I don't think that's any accident. I think they were just trying to say, yeah, we shit on you, you Aztecs. Here you go, So that was real bad. So anyway, that came up in eRoom's. It was one of the trivia questions, and I typed in some comments. I explained this. I don't know if it. I kind of said, yeah, in San Jose they made it look like shit or whatever. I don't know if my comment made a lot of sense during the stream there. So I wanted to show that, just to show that I knew it wasn't something I was just hallucinating about or whatever. It's a real thing. All right, let's see here. Oh, we're still analyzing my audio, so I don't know. I'll have to come back to that, I guess. Wait, I guess I could pause it. Maybe can I get it to? Let me pause it and see if it. So I paused it, but I don't know why that doesn't pause the actual analyzing. Okay, so it's. I don't know how long this is going to take for it to do it. It turned out this was a long clip that I gave it. So, all right. I guess we'll do that another day. All right. All right. Let me do some shout outs here. Close that. So we had a raid from eRoom. Do I need to do the @ here? Oh, there we go. So everybody give eRoom a follow. I think everybody here is following him already, but if you're not, what's wrong with you? Give him a follow. eRoom does quizzes and puzzles and words on stream. And we had let's see here. Oh, Esron Music. I'm not sure how I'm going to look up Esron Music's exactly how to do it because I can't. Hang on just a second here. Okay, I don't think Esron's still here. Esron Music. Let me see if this does it. That works. Yeah, there it is. Esron Music. I think that's it. Esron Music. If you're not familiar, they play music and make all kinds of cool videos while they're doing the music. Highly produced. Very cool stream. Let's see. Femvox fan. Do you stream Femvox? I don't know. Let's see here. I'm not sure if Femvox fan streams. We'll take a look and see. It doesn't look like it. Okay. But give them a follow anyway, for sure. Because all of us small users and streamers can use all the follows we can get. Happy Nightmares was here. Let's see if that worked. Yes. Happy Nightmares does like a lot of very similar stuff that I was talking about here tonight. Talking about consciousness and the way the brain works, neuroscience, neurodiversity, lots of stuff like that. Also cooking, variety streamer, but very much science oriented. Likes to make educational streams. Let's see, we had Memloss. That work? Yes, Memloss. Occasionally does IRL. Most recently does a lot of GTA 5 streams, Grand Theft Auto. So give Memloss a follow if you have not already. Let's see. See who else was here. Oh, Flash was here. Let's see, Flash and Peekaboo Draws. Okay. So, no. Let's see. Peekaboo Draws. I hope I hope that's right. Failed. Oh boy. Hang on, just take a second here. I'm trying to get all my shout outs done. Peekaboo draws. I think I did that right. Let me try my shout out again. If that can work. Peekaboo draws. Maybe I did a typo there. There we did. Okay. Peekaboo draws. Peekaboo draws moderates a lot of streams. Very, very supportive of the community. And when she does stream, she streams draws. She draws, pictures of her hand drawing things, or crafts, lots of different stuff. So everybody give Peekaboo Draws a follow. And whoops. Hang on just a second here. We'll get it. Hang on. We'll get this figured out. And who we have? Flash. Okay, I think that's it. _XE, I think it is. Did I type that right? No. I have dyslexia, for those of you who don't know. So it's very hard for me to type things, especially names and things like that are very difficult for me to remember how to type. Okay, it's gone. All right, hang on just a second here. I'm going to try to find Flash here. Flash. I thought it was Flash _XE. Yeah, he's already gone. He's not on my list here, so I can't get his thing. So let me go to my follower channel here, because I want to give him a shout out. He does IRL. He has a bike that's a motorized bike. Oh, there's an extra. Okay, Flash _XE_. Okay, there we go. All right. Shout out to Flash _XE_. Flight still failed. Well, all right, we'll get this figured out. Hang on just a second. See my bird thing. Now that bird thing isn't going to finish up.
What's up with PBM?
Oh, I know what I did wrong. All right. Flash _XE_. I think this one will work. There we go. Okay, so give Flash a follow. I think that's everybody who participated in chat. If I missed somebody, I'm sorry. Always, you can promote yourself. Always, I don't care if people promote themselves in my chat. Feel free to brag about yourself. You know, I figure we're all small streamers here. We got to help each other out all we can. So if you think you need to have your be promoted, by all means, please go ahead and type in your stuff in the chat. All right, I guess that's it. Let me do my disclaimers here. I've got to do a, I did put in some fair use and all that kind of stuff. So I want to put that in here. So let me do that. Document. Connect. Document. Turn it on. Light it up. Move it over. Okay, there we go. So this is how I do my my disclosures or my credits or whatever, because I don't know how to do it otherwise. Today is the 18th. And let's see what we streamed about. We streamed about... No, we didn't stream about that. What did we stream about? We streamed about a new monkey species and more AI and an AMA, Ask Me Anything. So let me put that in there. That's what we streamed about. And I think those tags are close enough. Let me put monkey in there for a tag. So that ends up over on YouTube. We did talk about JSpace a little bit. We talked about that. DeepMind with Google, we didn't talk about that much. We talked about a new OpenAI. That. Let's see. It's about a new monkey species. What else did we talk about? AI. We talked about a lot of stuff, didn't we? Oh, the FermiParadox. FermiParadox. All right, I think that's enough for now. All right, we use clips under fair use. Snail image, we didn't use that at all. We didn't use the snail image. Public domain, we didn't do that. Okay. We did do some, if there was any copyrighted stuff, I don't think I did any copyrighted stuff, but if I did, it was fair use, I'm sure. We didn't have anything from NASA. Let's see. Oh, I did do a real clip thing about the monkeys, just as a joke, satirical. Right, that's fair use. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, the Wikipedia articles are under Creative Commons 4.0, so you can copy them. This stream itself is released under Creative Commons 4.0, but of course that's just my part of it. It's not any fair use, anything else that has copyrighted by somebody else. It's only my stuff that's released under Creative Commons. And I have music at the very beginning. I have music all along by Hans Adam. Fireproof Babies, Misjudged and Fireproof Baby. So I modified that a little bit. All right, there we go. All right, I think I got all my credits in there. I think that's it. All right, browser window can go off. Document window can go off. All right, I guess that's it. Any questions? All right, here we go. Let's see. Should I raid somebody? Let's see if there's. I got 10 people here. I don't know how many are actually here left in my stream. Let me take a gander out here and see if there's anybody out here that we can raid. Let's see, we got a lot of people I don't know very well. We got SROM, and we've got, let's see, on mem loss. All right, let's give SROM a raid. Let's see if I can do that. Because he gave me a follow. They raid SROM movie. Yeah, good suggestion, Eram. Yeah, let's give SROM a thing, a raid. All right, so let's see. I got to do a raid setup. I did all my credits. I think we're ready to rock and roll here. Raid. I think I got to say at SROM _ music. I think that's it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the raid. I don't have any raid calls. Right there we go. Thank you, Eram. All right. So we'll get over there. We'll give SROM a raid, and let's see. Let me see if I can copy that raid call. Okay, I think I got it. Copy. Nice one. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I'll start the raid here, and then I'll play my squirrel closing video. Let's see if it works here. Invalid username. Oh shit. Okay. What did I do wrong? All right, let me try harder here. SROM _ music. Do I have to capitalize the E? Or maybe I don't put the @ sign. Maybe that's what it is. Let's see. @raid SROM music. Ah, there we go. Okay. It doesn't want the @ sign. All right, here we go. So I don't know how many are going to make it over there, but we got the raid call. Fembox fan, thank you everyone for sticking to the end. And I'll play my closing thing here now. All right, there we go. So it should send us in a few minutes here. Once the squirrels get up there, it should send us over for the raid. I appreciate everybody stopping by. Appreciate the raid, Eram. Cat gun, yes. I don't know what the... Oh, you're shooting the @ sign. Yes, that'll help me remember. Thank you. Shooting the @ sign. All right. Let me do my peace sign here. There we go. I always do my peace sign at the end. All right, everybody. Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Here we go.